Song-guk's grandfather stepped out of the car with composed dignity. His presence exuded a commanding aura that far surpassed that of Vice Chairman Jun Jae-young. He refused to be perceived or treated as a frail old man. He clarified to Jae-young that his performance in front of the media was merely an act, and it should not be mistaken for actual weakness. John Jushin glanced at Song-guk with concern, questioning whether it was truly appropriate to proceed with the shoot involving such a young child, and challenged Jae-young's judgment. In response, Jae-young emphasized the importance of embracing change over adhering strictly to traditional approaches. He elaborated that it was time for Samjeon to shed its outdated and rigid image, an idea that made John Jushin visibly uncomfortable. With irritation in his expression, John Jushin asked whether Jae-young now considered his father's methods outdated and uninteresting. Jae-young found himself unable to respond. Turning his head dismissively, John Jushin silently conveyed that Jae-young would do as he pleased regardless. Under his breath, Jae-young muttered, "What a sharp old geezer." Looking at Song-guk, John Jushin asked why his son was investing so heavily in the child, to which Jae-young calmly replied that it was a strategic investment for the future. The use of the word investment left John Jushin both confused and frustrated. He questioned what value a mere child like that could possibly hold, triggering a memory of his conversation with Son-mi, who had mentioned Song-guk's independent one-man agency. She had also said she could easily join a prominent agency, framing the entire situation as a form of investment in itself. Furthermore, the entertainment and advertisement industries had evolved. Relatability and public friendliness were now at the forefront of success. And Song-guk was currently ranked #1. He was the most popular child actor in the country. Thus, aligning Son-mi's image to the market with Song-guk was a calculated investment. She had seen his potential long before others did. But interrupting his thoughts, John Jushin pointed at Song-guk and muttered, "Look at that brat." His expression shifted to awe when he saw the young boy reading with focus and clarity. When he learned that Song-guk began reading at the age of 3, Jushin couldn't help but be genuinely impressed. In a rare moment of exasperated honesty, Jushin admitted that none of his own grandchildren displayed talent like Song-guk's. Turning away, John Jushin's frustration with his own grandchildren was evident, and Jae-young silently agreed with his father's sentiment. Meanwhile, Song-guk had a strange sense that someone was talking about him, and he was right. Soon after, he was informed that the new commercial would be for a vacuum cleaner. With quiet confidence, he understood that this advertisement could very well define Samjeon's future business direction. He recognized it as a golden opportunity to elevate his own value even further. But before he could focus on the moment, someone suddenly began rushing toward him. It was the Just Group, hastening in Song-guk's direction. However, Jae-young had his eyes set elsewhere. He approached So-young, took her hand, and told her he had missed her, leaving Song-guk visibly frustrated. Taehyung then came up to Song-guk, inquiring about his whereabouts with concern. With a bright smile, Song-guk nodded in agreement. He noticed how the members' faces seemed to light up with genuine happiness. They began thanking Song-guk for everything, leaving So-young puzzled as to why he was receiving their gratitude. One of the members explained that the title Song-guk had chosen had remained at #1 for 30 consecutive weeks. So-young was astonished upon hearing that fact. Thanks to that success, they had become a well-known group, and Song-guk was ready to take full credit for it. With his usual confidence, he playfully demanded that they repay him somehow. But Taehyung, overjoyed, suddenly lifted Song-guk into the air, leaving the boy completely confused. The members began hugging Song-guk tightly, which quickly irritated him. With a dark aura surrounding him, he gave Taehyung a cold glare, only to be interrupted by someone clapping loudly. It was the director, calling everyone's attention to start the shoot. With enthusiasm, everyone loudly responded, "Yes!" They all felt that this particular filming set had a much more vibrant energy compared to the previous ones. The assistant director then called everyone to their positions. Both Jae-young and Song-guk were visibly impressed by the sheer number of cameras on set. Suddenly, Song-guk called out to Taehyung, grabbing his attention with a serious tone. He asked, "Where is Michael?" A question that instantly silenced everyone. So-young also noticed the tension and echoed the same question. With a solemn expression, Taehyung began to explain to Song-guk what had happened. He shared that Michael had left the group. Song-guk was visibly shocked upon hearing this. He yelled, demanding to know why, but Taehyung had no real answer. saying it had been Michael's decision alone. Taeyong explained that ever since Sung-guk had scolded him, Michael had grown distant. No one really talked to him afterward, and one day, he left to visit his family and never returned. Sung-guk was deeply shocked because this situation was different from his previous life. In his past life, Michael had been involved in numerous scandals but had remained with Just Group until one day he mysteriously vanished. Everything had seemed to be repeating like before, except for one change. Michael had met Sung-guk. This realization made Sung-guk wonder if he truly had the power to change the future. Suddenly, a wave of shock hit him hard, overwhelming his thoughts. But just then, a voice called out to him from behind. He turned around in confusion to see who it was. It was the assistant director, attempting to break up a serious conflict between two group members. It appeared that Jae-hyun and Beom-sun were caught in a very tense situation. Sung-guk quickly intervened to stop the argument, asking both of them what had actually happened. It appeared that Jae-hyun was visibly frustrated with Beom-sun. Jae-hyun explained that Beom-sun had mocked him for his lack of acting skills, while Beom-sun expressed his disappointment in Jae-hyun's overall attitude. The assistant director took Jae-hyun's side and encouraged him to demonstrate his acting abilities. Jae-hyun decided to take the challenge seriously and perform. However, his attempt at serious acting failed to convey any genuine emotion. Instead, his expressions came across as overly cute, even in a supposedly intense scene. The onlookers were taken aback and visibly disappointed by his performance. It was then that Sung-guk fully understood Beom-sun's earlier remarks and why he had been so critical of Jae-hyun. Jae-hyun was a true idol. His soft-spoken nature and charm made him extremely popular among fans, especially young girls. But when it came to acting, he tended to overact and lose credibility on screen. In contrast, Beom-sun was the exact opposite, unrefined as an idol, but strikingly authentic as an actor. Without warning, Sung-guk grabbed Beom-sun by the shirt collar. He asked Beom-sun to try acting in place of Jae-hyun. Jae-hyun, with a mix of curiosity and mischief, encouraged the idea, eager to let Beom-sun experience the challenges of acting firsthand. Beom-sun, caught off guard, asked plainly, "Me?" With a reassuring tone, Sung-guk motivated him to give it a try, offering his full support. Eventually, Beom-sun agreed to step in, which brought a smile to Sung-guk's face. Jae-hyun muttered under his breath, "Let's see if you can back up your big talk." Suddenly, Beom-sun shifted his expression and delivered the line, "How am I supposed to live in such a filthy place?" He portrayed confusion flawlessly, then lit up upon discovering the vacuum cleaner, as if it were a life-saving device. Jae-hyun was stunned by Beom-sun's performance, while the assistant director enthusiastically applauded his talent. Jae-hyun had never imagined that the quiet and reserved Beom-sun could possess such impressive acting skills. The assistant director asked if Beom-sun could take on the role officially. Both Jae-hyun and Beom-sun agreed without hesitation, bringing a proud smile to Sung-guk's face. Jae-hyun was a kind-hearted individual. He never clung to pride unnecessarily, and he accepted the change with grace. Placing a supportive hand on Beom-sun's shoulder, Jae-hyun encouraged him to give his best in the role. Guk and the assistant director were both pleased to see the matter resolved peacefully and positively. But he noticed something unusual. He found himself simply staring at the people in front of him, lost in thought. In his previous life, Jae-hyun and Beom-sun eventually pursued solo careers and ceased their group activities. But now, those two had reconciled and resolved their differences. They were now exceeding the path they had followed in the past. It felt as if events were unfolding similarly to before, yet this time, they could be altered and made better. He burst with joy, realizing that he truly had the power to change the future. Later that evening at the studio, Sung-guk was utterly exhausted. He had gone through a considerable number of lines during filming and now longed to just lie down and rest at home. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared, startling So Young. It was actress Seon-mi, cheerful and energetic as always. She had come to help them get home, though Sung-guk clearly sensed the true intentions of this cunning, fox-like woman. However, given their physical exhaustion, they had little choice but to accept her assistance. Along the way, she informed them that she had reserved a fantastic place for dinner. Upon arrival, they were warmly welcomed at the entrance. Seon-mi then announced that she had booked a private room for them, and Sung-guk was stunned by what he saw. It turned out to be his beloved soul food spot from his past life, the Best Bean Noodles restaurant. He was completely taken aback at the sight of the food laid out on the table. In his previous life, he used to visit this place and indulge in the dishes to his heart's content. But in this life, he believed he wouldn't have the chance to taste this food again for at least another 10 years. Without delay, he eagerly began devouring the meal, while So Young hesitated, concerned about the cost. Seon-mi simply smiled, clearly hoping that this gesture would prompt Sung-guk to accept her into his agency. To further impress them, she added that she had also dealt with Shin Sung-jung, the man who had previously troubled their family, shocking So Young. She explained that she, too, had grown tired of his antics and, with assistance from the vice chairman, had taught him a valuable lesson. Now, she assured them he would no longer be in any position to cause trouble. As she continued to enthusiastically list all the things she had done for them, Sung-guk had already finished his meal. He detected a sense of genuine sincerity in her words. However, this time he made a different decision. He asked Seon-mi to join them. With a confident smile, he officially welcomed Seon-mi into his agency. Seon-mi was thrilled that her strategy involving food had worked, though for Sung-guk, that wasn't the sole reason behind his decision. Since witnessing the resolution between Jaehyun and Beomson, he had come to understand that the future could be changed. And with that realization, he believed it might be possible to transform Seon-mi into a better version of herself. He hoped that, in time, Seon-mi could become a reliable ally for both his agency and himself. Seon-mi expressed her gratitude to So Young as well, who responded that she would first need to discuss the matter with her husband. Later that night, at Sung-guk's home, after hearing about their decision to bring Seon-mi into the agency, his father remained silent for a moment, thinking it over. Then, with a firm and resolute tone, he declared that he was still against the idea. Everyone was puzzled by the father's decision to reject Seon-mi's entry. He then posed a direct question. If they were calling it an agency, did they even have an office or employees? He continued, pointing out that they couldn't manage someone like Seon-mi without any infrastructure. If they pushed too far without preparation, it was bound to fail. Sung-guk listened intently to his words. To him, everything his father was saying made perfect sense. At present, SKJ was essentially a one-man show being run entirely by Manager Kim. Even if Manager Kim took on responsibilities like HR and planning, they still needed someone to manage finances, and finding a capable employee wouldn't be easy. But then a thought struck him. He suddenly had a genius idea and abruptly ran out of the meeting. Meanwhile, his father and Manager Kim continued their discussion about hiring staff. They began by discussing the need for an accountant, which caught So Young's attention immediately. From behind, Sung-guk approached his mother, holding a book in his hand. It was basic accounting principles. What now he wanted his mother to learn and become an employee? But his mother was shocked because it was actually her own book. She had previously studied accounting. When Manager Kim inquired, she replied that she had graduated from a commercial high school and had even worked as a bookkeeper for a while. She admitted that she wanted to work but lacked recent experience. To boost her confidence, Sung-guk told her that experience didn't matter. She could absolutely do it. Seeing the trust in her son's eyes left her utterly speechless. He smiled, knowing full well that trust mattered more than experience, and there was no one more trustworthy than his mother. Agreeing with him, both the manager and father encouraged her to step up as the agency's accountant. With all their support, she finally resolved to give it her best and officially accepted the position. With calm composure, Sung-guk committed to supporting her talent and passion, and he thanked her. Thinking his money is safe now, Manager Kim then proposed a location for the office. So Young was taken aback when the manager revealed that the building was actually hers, meaning there would be no rent involved. She declared that this was her business too, a statement that filled Sung-guk with pride at her strong sense of ownership. With overwhelming excitement, they all committed to building SKJ into something truly remarkable. The scene shifted to the next morning at Sung-guk's house. Seon-mi visited, cheerfully carrying a large watermelon. She had heard that they were setting up the office, so she decided to drop by. The desks and supplies looked professional, though the manager clarified that there were only 2 desks for now. Feeling a bit embarrassed, the manager apologized for the limited space, but Seon-mi assured him that efficiency mattered more than size. She understood well that a fancy and spacious office didn't guarantee success. She held a newspaper in her hands. She showed the manager a headline stating that Seon-mi had officially joined SKJ. The manager was stunned that the news had spread so quickly. Xianmi offered a gentle smile, knowing that there was no turning back now. She then inquired about Sung-guk and walked inside the house to meet him. Inside, Sung-guk was preoccupied with caring for his younger brother. Seeing this, Xianmi found the moment genuinely heartwarming. However, Sung-guk didn't seem too thrilled to see her there. The manager shared that Min-guk had recently started crawling, and now he was clinging to his older brother constantly, following him everywhere. It was evident that taking care of Min-guk was proving to be a challenge for Sung-guk. With excitement, Xianmi said that since Min-guk had grown so much, he could come along too. Sung-guk was puzzled, unsure where she intended to take him. He was taken aback when she mentioned that the vice chairman's son, John Tae-guk, was having his 10th birthday party soon. The manager also appeared surprised, as Xianmi continued explaining the party details and location. Hearing about Tae-guk's birthday made Sung-guk fall into deep thought. He recalled his past life relationship with his brother, which hadn't been pleasant. He truly didn't want to see him again, but suddenly a small finger poked his cheek softly. Min-guk had approached him with an adorably innocent face. Sung-guk picked him up, comforted by the thought that Min-guk wasn't like Tae-guk. The issue was that Min-guk didn't just follow Sung well, he followed him too well. But then he noticed something. It was the date of the birthday party, July 8th. He tried to recall why the date felt so significant. A vague memory was surfacing, but he couldn't fully grasp it. Night fell, and the entire family was asleep. Suddenly, the telephone rang. So Young answered the call. Hearing her voice, Sung-guk also woke up and stepped into the hall. From a distance, he overheard his mother on the phone discussing the birthday party. He was stunned to hear that the event had been postponed indefinitely. Realizing it was major news, he rushed toward the television. As soon as he turned it on, his eyes widened in disbelief. The breaking news reported that the supreme leader of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea had died. He stood frozen, staring at the screen, as the memory tied to July 8th came flooding back. It was 2 a.m., and the news was reporting the death of North Korea's chairman. Sung-guk's family sat with serious expressions, absorbing the gravity of the situation. At that moment, Sung-guk recalled everything about that fateful day. The South Korean government, which had been on the verge of signing a peace agreement with North Korea, was thrown into disarray. Tensions escalated globally. Nations from the US to China and Japan were on high alert, fearing the potential resurgence of the Korean War. Following the death of its leader, North Korea plunged into internal chaos. Some even felt hopeful, thinking unification was near. But the outcome was neither peaceful nor simple. It was dangerous and harsh. Sung-guk knew that both domestic and international conditions would remain unstable for some time. It was expected that Tae-guk's birthday party would be postponed by over 10 days. But what truly shocked him was the news of a stock market crash. His senses sharpened instantly, absorbing every piece of information. So Young was amazed at how much her husband understood about the stock market. With cautious hope, Sung-guk asked his father for permission to buy some stocks. His parents were bewildered by the sudden request, but Sung-guk was confident this was the perfect moment to invest. People were offloading their stocks like trash, but Sung-guk knew this was the best buying opportunity. Buy them at knees and sell at shoulder. While his father showed no interest, Sung-guk was thrilled watching significant stocks plummet. He even offered to use his own money if his parents weren't willing to invest theirs. So determined was he that he threatened to go on a hunger strike until they agreed. His parents found themselves in a dilemma, unsure of what to do next. Like most parents would, they decided to pretend they were agreeing to buy stocks, for now. But Sung-guk overheard them, and his intense gaze left his parents visibly nervous. So Young, trying to smooth things over, suggested they buy since prices weren't high. His father asked if they should buy just one stock, and Sung-guk promptly agreed. He imagined a future where his parents would see the results and feel proud of him. And from that moment on, he believed they would start trusting his judgment in everything. Feeling that the tides of change were beginning to turn, Sung-guk finally relaxed, knowing that great things were on the horizon. With unwavering determination, Sung-guk resolved to protect his family at all costs. The scene then shifted to Samjeon Hotel. It was the grand celebration for Tae-guk's birthday. So Young was in awe of the grandeur of the event. Everything was so extravagant, all this for a 10-year-old boy. It was a completely different world for them. But for Sung-guk, this was nothing extraordinary. He recalled that his own 10th birthday had been far more luxurious. A champagne fountain and a 10-tier cake crafted by a French pâtissier stood out in his memory. Clearly, they had toned things down this time to avoid drawing attention amid the current political tension following the renowned death. With confidence, he entered the venue, with So Young following closely behind. The guests were engaged in highly diplomatic conversations about topics such as war, which made So Young visibly uncomfortable. Sung-guk had already anticipated such a chaotic environment. They were then greeted by Secretary Yang and his son, both offering warm smiles. Secretary Yang mentioned that they had been waiting for Sung-guk's arrival. His son, Chol-soo, also greeted Sung-guk with courtesy and respect. While So Young was impressed by Chol-soo's maturity, Sung-guk was taken aback. In his past life, Sung-guk had doted on this boy dearly. Chol-soo extended his hand, and Sung-guk took it with familiarity. Chol-soo then began guiding him to his designated seat. Sung-guk felt that Chol-soo remained admirable, even in this new life. Suddenly, a familiar fragrance caught his attention. His eyes widened in disbelief. It was Jong-hee. Chol-soo asked if he recognized Jong-hee, the daughter of Sewon Steel. Hiding his emotions, Sung-guk calmly replied that she looked familiar. It was revealed that Jong-hee had been Sung-guk's first love in his previous life, though they were ultimately separated. Sung-guk once planned to marry her, but his father had struck a deal, offering to support the nearly bankrupt Sewon Steel if she broke up with Sung-guk. She agreed. To Sung-guk, it felt like a betrayal for mere financial gain, and he harbored deep resentment toward her. But now, he understood Jung-hee's decision. She had done it solely to protect her family. While he was lost in thought, Chol-soo was quietly observing him. Shaking off those thoughts, Sung-guk moved forward. Suddenly, someone's foot tripped him. Sung-guk fell to the ground in an embarrassing moment. So Young rushed forward in concern. Secretary Yang quickly moved to help him up. As Sung-guk lifted his gaze, he saw the culprit behind the incident. It was Tae-guk, his brother from his previous life. Falling in front of this arrogant boy filled Sung-guk with frustration. Tae-guk mocked him, asking why someone as poor and ordinary as Sung-guk had even been invited. Unable to suppress his anger any longer, Sung-guk delivered a powerful punch to Tae-guk's face, one he would surely never forget. Looked like someone got the loudest birthday gift. Tae-guk felt the full force of Sung-guk's punch. He stood in a heroic stance, while everyone around was left stunned by his reaction. So Young and the secretary quickly rushed toward Sung-guk, trying to prevent any further escalation. So Young scolded Sung-guk for his actions, but he attempted to explain that Tae-guk had deliberately tripped him. The secretary questioned Tae-guk if it was intentional, but Tae-guk completely denied any wrongdoing. They turned to Chol-soo for clarification on what had really happened. Chol-soo calmly stated the truth, catching Tae-guk completely off guard. So Young tried to calm Sung-guk down, but he was filled with intense anger, and Min-guk seemed to share the same energy, brotherly bond. Sung-guk had already dealt with this brat in his past life, so he wasn't holding back. Standing before Tae-guk, Sung-guk began taunting him, mocking how powerless the boy truly was. The secretary tried to reason with Tae-guk and reminded him it was his fault, but Tae-guk, being the stubborn brat he was, refused to back down. However, the secretary had a secret weapon. He invoked the vice chairman's name, and it immediately subdued Tae-guk. Sung-guk felt disappointed seeing how this fool still trembled at just the mention of their father. Suddenly, a gentle hand reached out to Sung-guk. So Young lifted him up gently, asking if he was badly hurt, and Sung-guk remained silent. As she tended to the scrape on his knee, Tae-guk silently watched the warmth of that motherly care from a distance. He tugged on the secretary's shirt and asked where his mother and father were. The secretary hesitated, then explained that they were tied up with urgent matters and couldn't attend. Tears welled up in Tae-guk's eyes. Even on his birthday, he had been overlooked. Unable to hold back, Tae-guk let out a loud cry, overwhelmed by the absence of his parents on such an important day. Sung-guk silently observed Tae-guk's breakdown. So Young, moved with sympathy, expressed sadness over Tae-guk having to sit alone on a day like this. The manager also felt disheartened and questioned aloud, "Is this how Chaebol families really are?" Sung-guk already knew the answer. It was a definite yes. He remembered that around this time in his previous life, his mother had been preoccupied caring for his grandfather. And as for his father, well, he didn't care for such events and would be off enjoying himself elsewhere. But Sung-guk had grown used to it. Their absence never mattered to him. He had always found ways to enjoy his birthday parties on his own. He used to be busy greeting all the top names from politics and business. But this Tae-guk just couldn't stop crying. Song-guk grew increasingly frustrated watching him cry so pitifully. The secretary took the microphone in hand and thanked everyone for attending the party. The meal service began, and the guests were invited to enjoy the special performance prepared for the occasion. To Song-guk's surprise, So-young revealed that she had specifically requested his favorite dish from the Jajangmyeon restaurant. Without hesitation, he began devouring the meal in front of him, while So-young watched fondly, enjoying his enthusiasm. Then the secretary announced the start of the special performance they had arranged. It was none other than the nation's idol group Just Group, scheduled to perform that evening. Song-guk was taken aback to see Just Group present. But before he could process it, Jong-hee, his ex from his past life, began cheering excitedly for them. She was visibly enthusiastic, and Song-guk was stunned by her reaction. It was clear that she was completely enamored with the members. Song-guk was speechless. He now understood her preferences in this life. On stage, Just Group began their performance. Taeyong turned toward Song-guk and said he missed him. Jong-hee and So-young were flustered, but for Song-guk, it felt incredibly cringe. Still, Song-guk was impressed that the secretary had managed to lighten the mood so effectively with food and entertainment. But then his gaze shifted to Tae-guk, who sat sadly in a corner. He continued to quietly shed tears. To Song-guk, he may have seemed hopeless, but seeing him sobbing alone didn't sit right. As he was reflecting on his parents' cold behavior, the door suddenly opened. Secretary Yang appeared visibly shocked. Vice President Jae-young and Madam had arrived. Everyone welcomed them with loud applause. The vice chairman greeted Song-guk with a warm smile. And then his mother from his past life appeared before him. He stood frozen, staring at his former mother. To his disappointment, the first thing she said was that Song-guk wasn't cute at all. As always, she was cold and sharp. It deeply angered him. She was known as the Iron Lady, someone who only cared about work and had no empathy for anyone. Tae-guk was happy to see his mother, but she only commented on his poor manners and ordered him to sit quietly. Somehow, So-young viewed this as a happy family, but Song-guk couldn't understand how she saw something that wasn't even real. He knew the truth. This was a family with no love, no warmth between parent and child, only obsession with wealth and achievements. But he was truly grateful that in this new life, he had a loving family. Many seasons passed. It was the summer of 1995, and Song-guk had turned 5 years old. But it wasn't as joyful as one might expect. He was in the hospital, his parents looking blank and tense. He had been admitted, unconscious, battling a serious health issue. What could have happened? Is this the end? Please stay tuned to find out in the next part. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support my channel so I can bring more interesting stories. Bye.